The morning sun painted Heartland in hues of gold as Amy Fleming stood by the familiar fence, her gaze following Lindy as she chased the horses, her laughter echoing in the crisp air. This ranch, once a haven of peace, now held a quiet sadness, a constant reminder of a void left behind. Time had passed, seasons had turned, but some sorrows lingered, woven into the very soul of the place. Ty's absence wasn't just a memory. It lived in the rustle of the leaves, the steady rhythm of hooves on the earth, and most profoundly, in Lindy's eyes so much like his. It felt as though he was still here, just beyond reach. Lou arrived, 2 mugs of coffee in hand, and leaned against the fence beside Amy, a soft smile gracing her lips as she watched Lindy. "She's growing so fast," Lou mused, a hint of nostalgia in her voice, asking about riding Spartan on her own already. Amy offered a small smile, a touch of melancholy in her eyes. "She's so much like him," she murmured, acknowledging the fearless spirit Lindy shared with her father. "So much of Ty is in her." Lou's smile faded slightly, her voice cautious. "And Nathan, have you talked to him about what's next?" Amy sighed, the warmth of the coffee a small comfort. Nathan was kind, patient, everything she could ask for in someone helping her navigate life after loss. She had started to envision a future with him, a safe harbor for herself and Lindy. It felt right, or so she told herself. But love, she knew, wasn't always logical, and her heart still carried the heavy weight of a love presumed lost. Before she could answer, a truck rumbled up the driveway, kicking up a cloud of dust. Jack emerged from the barn, his eyes narrowing as he watched the approaching vehicle. A strange sense of anticipation settled over Amy, a feeling that the ordinary morning was about to shatter. The truck door opened, and the world seemed to pause. The air grew heavy, the familiar sounds of the ranch fading into an unnerving silence. Amy's breath hitched as a figure stepped out, a silhouette achingly familiar, yet utterly impossible. Her heart hammered against her ribs, her hands trembling as she instinctively moved forward, disbelief warring with the undeniable reality before her. Ty Borden stood there, alive. Jack's face paled, his usual stoic demeanor crumbling. Lou gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Lindy, sensing the shift in the adults, but not understanding its cause, watched the newcomer with wide, curious eyes. But Amy felt as though the ground had vanished beneath her. For years she had walked through grief, rebuilding her life piece by agonizing piece, convinced that Ty was gone forever. And now he was here, standing as if no time had passed, as if death hadn't claimed him. The silence stretched, thick with the weight of unspoken years, a chasm filled with pain, love, and unanswered questions. Ty's gaze held a raw mix of longing, guilt, and a profound brokenness, a desperate yearning to mend what had been shattered. He opened his mouth, but no sound emerged at first. Finally, a whispered confession escaped him. "Amy, I'm home." The word struck Amy like a physical blow. Home. It felt foreign coming from him, a cruel twist of fate, a tempest of emotions. Anger, shock, pain, love, raged within her, uncontrollable and overwhelming. "No," she choked out, shaking her head, her voice trembling but her resolve hardening. "No, you don't get to say that. You don't get to just walk back into our lives as if nothing happened." Ty swallowed hard, his jaw tightening, the pain in his eyes deepening. "Amy, where were you?" she demanded, her voice rising, the years of unanswered questions fueling her fury. "Where were you all this time, Ty? Do you have any idea what we went through?" Tears welled in her eyes, the weight of every lonely night, every moment of heartache, crashing down on her. "Lindy grew up without you. I mourned you. I tried to move on, and now you just show up." Jack finally stepped forward, his voice rough with tightly held emotion. "You better have a damn good explanation, son." Ty looked at them all, Jack, Lou, and finally, his gaze fell upon Lindy, who watched him with innocent, questioning eyes. His voice was barely audible. "I never wanted to leave. I didn't have a choice." Amy turned away, gripping the fence for support, trying to steady the storm inside. Lou, her voice laced with the pain of their shared grief, spoke for them both. "That's not good enough, Ty. You were presumed dead. We buried you in our hearts. Do you have any idea what that did to us?" "I know," Ty said, his voice heavy with regret. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. Amy turned back, her blue eyes mirroring the turmoil within her. You can't just expect us to forgive you, she whispered, the words torn from her aching heart. I don't, Ty admitted, his honesty, but I need you to know the truth. Lindy's small voice cut through the tension, clear and hesitant. Are you my dad? Ty's breath hitched, his eyes softening as he knelt down to her level. Yeah, sweetheart, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your dad. Lindy studied him for a long moment, then looked up at Amy, seeking confirmation. Amy's heart shattered into a million pieces. This was the moment she had dreaded and longed for. The moment Lindy would finally meet her father. Jack exhaled deeply, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. I think we all need answers. Ty nodded, his face grim. I'll tell you everything, but it's not what you think. Amy's heart pounded. She had lived with a truth for so long, a truth born of loss and grief. But as she looked into Ty's eyes, she knew that whatever had kept him away, whatever he had endured, was far more complex than she could have imagined, and it was about to change everything. A heavy silence settled over Heartland, the air thick with the unspoken, the weight of Ty's impossible return pressing down on everyone. The wind whispered through the trees, and the horses in the distance shifted uneasily, sensing the disquiet that permeated the ranch. Amy stood frozen, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, a futile attempt to contain the chaotic storm in her chest. She had replayed this moment in countless dreams and nightmares, dreams where he was alive, nightmares where she lost him again. But the reality of him standing before her, solid and breathing, was something she had never prepared for. Jack, his voice a low rumble, broke the silence, the edge of his usual steady tone replaced by a raw demand. Start talking, Ty, now. Ty took a shaky breath, his hands clenched at his sides. His gaze flickered to Lindy, who watched him with a mixture of curiosity and bewilderment. The striking resemblance to him hit him with the force of a physical blow. Years of her life, missed. I know I owe you all an explanation, he said, his voice rough with unshed emotion. But you have to believe me. I never meant to leave. Amy let out a bitter, disbelieving laugh, shaking her head. That's not good enough, Ty. Not even close. Lou, who had been a silent, stoic presence beside Jack, finally spoke, her voice tinged with the pain they had all carried. Ty, you were declared dead. We grieved for you. Amy had to piece her life back together. And Lindy grew up without a father. And now, after all this time, you just show up and expect us to listen? Ty's jaw tightened, his gaze fixed on Amy. I don't expect anything, but if you'll just let me explain, maybe you'll understand. Amy's breath was ragged, but she nodded, a desperate need for answers overriding her anger. Fine, explain. Ty glanced at Jack, then back at Amy, his voice dropping. After the shoot, I woke up in a hospital, but it wasn't in Hudson. The pain in his eyes was undeniable, even as his voice remained steady. I was taken somewhere else off the grid. I don't remember much from the first few days, just pain, confusion, then nothing. When I finally came to, they told me I couldn't come back, that it wasn't safe. Amy frowned, a knot of fear tightening in her stomach. Safe from what? Ty hesitated, choosing his words carefully. There were people who didn't want me to survive that day. If they knew I was alive, they would have come after me. And after you. Amy's blood ran cold. Are you saying someone tried to kill you? Ty exhaled slowly. I don't know exactly who was behind it, but I knew that if I came back, I would put you and Lindy in danger, so I stayed away. Jack's fists clenched at his sides. You expect us to believe that? Ty met Jack's gaze, his voice filled with a quiet desperation. I had no choice. The only way to keep Amy and Lindy safe was to disappear. Amy's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to scream, to accuse him of lying, to tell him that nothing, absolutely nothing, could justify the years of pain and loss they had endured. But something in his eyes, something raw and broken, made her hesitate. Could it be true? Had he really sacrificed everything to protect them? Lindy, who had been silently absorbing the intense conversation, finally spoke, her small voice cutting through the tension. You're my dad. Her voice was hesitant, fragile, but it shattered the emotional dam. Ty knelt down to her level, his voice thick with emotion. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm your dad." Lindy steadied him, her little brow furrowed in concentration. Then, in a gesture that stole everyone's breath, she took a small step forward and reached out, touching his face. "You don't look like the pictures." A choked laugh escaped Ty, his eyes glistening with tears. "I know, honey. It's been a long time." Amy turned away, overwhelmed, the emotions threatening to consume her. Just hours ago, she had been contemplating a future with Nathan, trying to move, and now Ty was here, alive, standing before her, claiming that everything she had believed was a lie. Nathan, the thought hit her with a fresh wave of guilt. He had been her anchor, the steady presence who had helped her heal, the one who had been there for Lindy when she needed a father figure. And now, just as she was on the verge of building a new life with him, Ty had returned. Lou, sensing Amy's inner turmoil, spoke again. "Ty, even if what you're saying is true, it doesn't erase the years Amy and Lindy had to live without you. That kind of pain doesn't just disappear." Ty stood, his gaze locked on Amy. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, Amy, but I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. Not for a second." Amy's breath hit. She wanted to believe him, to cling to the hope that their love could somehow overcome the years of separation and sorrow. But love, she knew now, wasn't always enough. Jack sighed, running a weary hand over his face. "You're staying in the guest cabin tonight." Amy swallowed hard, nodded. She couldn't process this. Not now. She needed space, time to breathe. Ty turned to her, his voice soft, a plea in his eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." Amy met his gaze, her heart aching with uncertainty. "I don't know if you..." As she walked away, Lindy glanced back at Ty before following her mother, and Ty stood there, watching them go, knowing that the hardest battle of his life had just begun, the fight to earn back the trust of the family he had lost. The night was long and restless for Amy. Every time she closed her eyes, memories of Ty flooded her mind. His laughter, his touch, the way he used to look at her as if she was his entire world. And now he was back, alive, but the man who stood before her was a stranger, changed by experiences she couldn't fathom. She wasn't sure if she could ever truly trust him again. The early morning sun cast a golden glow over Heartland as Amy stepped onto the porch, a cup of coffee warming her hands. In the distance, she saw Ty sitting on the steps of the guest cabin, staring out at the sprawling landscape. He looked like a man haunted, burdened by the choices he had made. Jack joined her, his expression unreadable. "Couldn't sleep?" Amy shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I hear his voice. I see him, and I don't know if it's real or just my heart playing tricks on me." Jack sighed, rubbing his hands together. "I don't trust him yet, Amy, but I know one thing, you deserve answers, and so does Lindy." Amy tightened her grip on her cup. "Lindy, she doesn't understand any of this, Jack. She's just a little girl. How do I even begin to explain?" Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You tell her the truth, Amy. That's all you can do." Amy exhaled slowly and walked toward Ty. As she approached, he looked up, his face etched with fatigue but a flicker of hope in his eye. "I didn't think you'd want to talk to me," he said, standing. Amy kept a safe distance, her voice firm. "I don't know what I want, Ty, but I do know that Lindy deserves the truth, and so do I." Ty nodded, his gaze searching hers. "Ask me anything. I won't hide anything from you." Amy hesitated, then took a deep breath. "You said you stayed away to protect us. How do I know that's the truth? How do I know you didn't just give up on us?" Pain flashed across Ty's face. "I never gave up on you, Amy. Never. Not for a single sec." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I wanted to come back every day. I fought to find a way, but the people who did this to me, they made sure I couldn't." Amy crossed her arms. "Who are they, Ty? Who did this to you?" Ty's jaw clenched. "I don't know their name, but they were connected to the shooting. The people who tried to kill me weren't just random criminals. There was something bigger at play." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. "Bigger? Like what?" Ty hesitated before answering. "I think it had something to do with the land dispute. The one that almost cost you and Jack the ranch." Amy's heart pounded. That dispute had nearly shattered their family. Could it really be connected to Ty's disappearance? Before she could respond, approaching footsteps drew their attention. Amy turned to see him standing a few feet away, his expression unreadable. His presence alone tightened her chest. He had been her steady presence, the man she had started to trust, the one who had been there for Lindy. And now, everything was falling apart. "Amy," Nathan said, his voice calm but firm. "Can we talk?" Ty straightened, a protective instinct flaring. "I think Amy and I were in the middle of something." Nathan's eyes met Ty's, the tension between them thick and palpable. "I understand you have unfinished business here," Nathan said, his voice even, "but Amy isn't the only one who's been affected by your disappearance." Amy stepped between them, holding up a hand. "Stop, both of you." She turned to Nathan. "What is it?" Nathan exhaled. "I need to know where we stand, Amy. Before all this happened, we were planning a future. I was ready to take the next step. Now everything's changed." Amy's throat tightened. Nathan had been nothing but understand, but how could she give him an answer when her world had just been turned upside down? "I don't know, Nathan," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what's right anymore." Nathan's expression softened, but pain flickered in his eyes. "I love you, Amy, but I won't compete with a ghost." Ty's fists clenched. "I'm not a ghost." Nathan's gaze didn't waver. "You were, for a long time." Amy felt the weight of their emotions crashing down on her, a suffocating pressure. She had spent so long learning to live without Ty, to accept his absence, and now she was being forced to choose between the love she had lost and the love she had slowly built. Before she could respond, Lindy's small voice cut through the tension. "Mommy?" Amy turned to see Lindy standing in the doorway, her eyes wide and uncertain. Nathan took a step back. "I should go." Amy nodded, silently grateful for his understanding. She crouched down to Lindy's level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "What is it, sweetheart?" Lindy glanced at Ty, then back at her mother. Can I talk to him?" Amy's breath hit. She looked at Ty, his eyes filled with raw emotion. "Of course, sweetheart," Amy said softly, stepping aside. Ty knelt down, his voice gentle. "Hey, Lindy." Lindy hesitated, then took a tentative step closer. "Did you really love Mommy?" Ty's eyes glistened. "More than anything in this world." Lindy bit her lip. "Then why did you leave?" Ty swallowed hard, his voice thick with regret. "Because I thought I was keeping you both safe, but I was wrong." Lindy studied him carefully, then took another step forward. To everyone's surprise, she reached out and touched his hand. "Are you going to leave again?" Ty shook his head, his voice breaking. "No, sweetheart. I'm here to stay." Amy watched the exchange, her heart aching with a mixture of hope and trepidation. She wanted to believe him, to believe that they could somehow rebuild what had been lost. But deep down, she knew that nothing would ever be the same. The weight of Ty's return settled over Heartland, like a storm cloud, shifting the dynamics of every relationship, every conversation, every quiet moment. Amy found herself caught between two lives, the one she had mourned for years, and the one she had started to rebuild. There was no easy path forward, no simple answers, only the aching pull of the past, and the daunting uncertainty of the future. Ty had promised Lindy he was staying, that he wouldn't leave again, but words were fragile things, and Amy had spent too long learning to live without him, to simply accept them now. Trust, she knew, was not something that could be rebuilt overnight. It had to be earned, one difficult step at a time. The morning was crisp and cool as Amy led Spartan through the pasture, the familiar rhythm of working with the horse a calming presence in the chaos of her mind. But even as she moved, she felt his presence before she saw him. He stood by the fence, watching her with that same quiet intensity that used to make her heart race. Now, it only made it ache. "You still ride like it's the only place you feel free," he said softly. Amy didn't turn to face him.